Hello, I'm Joseph, and today I want to talk about how to get Go hosted on shared hosting environments. I'm using HostGator as an example, but technically anything that can run CGI or fast CGI can have Go run into it. And that's because Go's unique runtime allows it to run without glibc kind of intertwined with it. And the reason why with that is if you try to use like NIM, Zig, C, C++, Rust, you need to usually link against glibc. And if you have to do that, then you need to know the version on the server and cross compile to it. Here you can cross compile with Go and you just set it with cgo as 0 and then just build it up as normal and you can deploy on here. Now, another thing to like put some like red tape around this, I would only recommend this if you want fixed pricing that's cheap and you do not want to learn about how to manage a server. If you're okay with learning how to manage a server, go get VPS, go get cloud hosting, go with the free tiers, do those things. But if you really want like super cheap shared hosting, they say they provide fast CGI or CGI. Here's what you should be expecting. One, CGI is really slow, but it's still way faster in Go. Like for example, if I try to use their Python, and I put it in quotes because it's Python 3.5 from 2015, that's over 9 years old. Their Ruby versions from 2005, that's almost 20 years old. Like you're going into time machines to go program in Python and Ruby and Perl, and PHP is the only updated dynamic language that you can use on here. But kind of going back, using CGI and with Python, it was like a half a second just to boot up a hello world. In Go, it was about 250 milliseconds, so a fourth of a second, so quite a bit faster. With fast CGI, you get really quick responses, and it's on par if you were just running PHP on the server. The response times of the initial connection and everything else is exactly the same between fast CGI and PHP, between the Go runtime and just PHP running on a shared context. There are a ton of things you need to consider, though. I'm going to talk about these limitations. So first, let's talk about Go or CGI. So if you're using Go and CGI, it's the simplest to do. You add a handler, and I'll talk about that later on your thing. You can do it through cPanel, or you can just edit an htaccess file. When you add the handler, it just basically is running it as a command line, and it will terminate afterwards. If you want to do any Go routines, asynchronous work, concurrent work, you can do that, but it will hold up the connection or the response to the user. So let's say you wanted to send an email out, but you want to get the response out before you send out the email to the user saying, hey, we sent an email. The response will be buffered by Apache, and it will not be sent to the end user, and it will wait until the email is sent to finally send the buffer out. So you can flush early and Go. The problem is with the defaults that HostGator has set for the buffer of CGI and fast CGI, they are too big. Fast CGI, I know, is probably around like 64 kilobytes of byte, like the number, like how big a string needs to be before it will flush to the browser. You cannot set this through htaccess. You need to have elevated permissions that you'll not be having in shared hosting. So you can do asynchronous work. You can have, like, I have an example where I set up 5 channels. I wait 5 seconds for each of those. The whole request only takes 5 seconds. It doesn't take 25. It only takes 5. I can get back the response. Really cool. It's just, I can't get the response back to them quicker, even if I have some other work waiting in the background. Fast CGI is going to be exact same limitation. This is going to be important because if you want to do something like server-side events, because you can't get WebSockets to work in this environment, you can't really do server-side events. What you can do is you can have an opened, very long connection, and you can send a little bit data, like maybe you're querying up to the database, waiting for the database to change, and then you send data out. That will work as long as the connection will terminate. And with server-side events, it will re-queue up a brand new connection to reconnect back again to listen for server-side events. And you kind of do it that way, but you can't technically stream data in. And that's solely because of that buffer limit, the 64 kilobytes of data that needs to be sent to the browser before Apache will flush it to the end user. I do have an example here of it using the thing. Here, let me do this. Let me do this here. So if I have hello. So this is using server-side events. it is flushing from fast CGI to here. But the problem is I'm able to modify that because I'm using this in the context of running this on my Docker instance. It's a local host thing. It's not on the server. This does not work in HostGator's shared hosting environment because of that limitation of the 64 kilobytes of data that needs to be put into the buffer before it will flush it out. So, and it doesn't matter. You can set gzip to nothing. You can set all this. I'll show you the stuff that I tried, and it does not work. There's no good way to really work around that. Let's see what. Let's make sure I have. Okay. Anyways, getting back on course here, let's talk about some of the code. I'm going to show you the build script first because that's probably the easiest to go over. The build script I have a local deployment one, which is to use Temple. I have like a Temple tried in here. That's what you saw for that server-side event stuff. So you can use Temple. You can use virtually anything. You can use a modern version of Go. You don't have to use some old archaic version like you would do in Python or Perl or Ruby. And so I set cgo enabled to 0, put in some flags, and just build it out. And it builds out everything that's in this folder. And then I just do docker stop and docker up because one issue with deployment with fast CGI specifically is it doesn't know how to restart itself because it is a long running process. Just because you upload the file doesn't mean it's going to know it needs to restart. And more specifically to the actual deployment script that I can't show because I have passwords on here because of how HostGator works. I actually need to SSH into the server, delete the fast CGI file that triggers a restart or termination of the fast CGI via Apache, then upload the main.fcgi and then set the permission for that to 755 or just executable on that server. And I'm doing this through SCP and SSH. There's probably other ways to do it. The reason why I can't show that build script specifically right now is because it does have passwords, and that's because for whatever reason, the HostGator is set up so it cannot accept certificates. They have a cPanel interface to generate keys. These keys don't really do anything. They still request a password even after you set up the key and everything else. So that's the only reason I'm not showing it. And it's not really any different than what you see here. It's just the SSH and SCP commands. I'll have all these commands in a fully written document up on my site for Hosted. So if you want to run through this, you can. The code is all your typical code that you would normally write, whatever framework you're using. The only little special thing that I'm doing here that would be different for CGI and fast CGI is the FCGI here. So this comes from the package here. If this was CGI, here I'll show you what I have for my CGI version here. It's just the same thing. You just have CGI instead of fast or FCGI, and you boot up your server the same way. So CGI serve. Just like here, where it's instead of CGI serve, it's FCGI serve. And you can change this. You can put this to HTTP. You can do whatever you want, which is really cool because you're not losing much of the context of anything that you're using. You can use virtually any framework that can hook into HTTP, can be hooking into CGI or FCGI, which I thought was really cool. The gotcha I ran here, though, is because this is a binary that you're uploading, this could be any folder, pathing is a problem. And I was using Gorilla Mux as a router. And one issue I ran to that is you would put a path prefix with Gorilla Mux, but yeah, it has to be different between production and local. I really didn't do that. It's going to be the same file regardless. And so all I did was I made a little script here to go ahead and look for main.fcgi and then go ahead and encapsulate or cut off all the previous because that means it's all relative to the actual runtime. And then I can just route based off of all this. I don't have to put in CGI bin or whatever else or whatever thing, or whatever else you can set. And then I have my different things. So Temple is a compiled Go template language. So like this is the Temple thing that you saw for the HTML server events. Pretty basic stuff here. Nothing really to kind of look at. You just compile it via a Temple command. Then you just include it. So nothing really special. I'm passing in W. W is from the HTTP response router from, I think, Gorilla, the Gorilla thing, or it could be from CGI. I can't remember offhand. But yeah, so pretty basic stuff. And then for the asynchronous thing here, I have it as async handler. That just does the, set up 5 channels to send stuff to, assign the channels per process thing, wait, sleep 5 seconds, come back, that type of thing. Pretty basic. Then the cookie handler, to set up a little early cookie, HTTP cookie. Like none of the stuff is unique to fast CGI or CGI. It is all the typical stuff that you would do for Go, which I just think was like just really cool. And then I have something in here, which was I was testing for, like, let's say you do have a very long running script. What would it be like? And so I wrote to a file every 10 seconds and it ran every 10 seconds for a whole hour. Like it actually did it. Now it's a very minimal invasive thing on the server. So it didn't really, hit a bunch of memory or CPU issue stuff. I'm not recommending you do that, but you kind of get the idea. And then there's a way to manually stop it if you want to. And then server-side events. This is what I was talking about where the issue's at. Like this here will stay up and running indefinitely, but I actually can't flush to the browser, even though I'm especially issuing flush. I tried, commenting this out and doing like a 5-second sleep. And again, it doesn't work. None of this stuff works. And because of that buffer limit I had talked about, you can technically flush, but you need the access to set the buffer. And so like my Docker file I have here actually set the buffer. Where's it at? Right here. So I had to set the actual buffer for this to 0. And then that's how I got server-side events to actually work. But yeah, it's not going to work in HostGator because you don't have the ability to set that. I'll give the whole Docker setup if you want to run it. It's not a big deal. Beyond that, what else do you need to do? In your htaccess file, all you need to do is set up a handler of fcgi script to set it at anything that's .cgi or fcgi. You can change it to any extension you want. It could be .go, it could be .exe. It doesn't really matter. And that will trigger everything. I tried all this other stuff because they couldn't tell me if they were running fast CGI or fast CGI ID or FCGI ID. I tried other stuff. I tried to set these things up. Like none of this stuff was working or was crashing. If you are using CGI, there's CGI down here that you would add CGI script. So it's a little bit different than fast CGI, but it's the same process. And then you just upload it. You make sure you set the permissions to 77 or 755. So like, for example, I can right click here and go to change permission. And I will just make sure it's all executable, 755, hit OK, that's it. And when you do a redeployment for CGI, you just upload the new file. But for fast CGI, you will go ahead and delete the script and re-upload it. Okay, so other than that, not really much else in terms of setup. Like you literally just set a handler in your htaccess. That's it. Whether it's fast CGI or just CGI mode, kind of do that. And there's nothing really special you do in Go other than you have to be knowing that you can't flush to the browser at any point of time, and that a synchronous request will hold up the entire request until all the asynchronous work is done. That's true for both fast CGI, or actually it's true for CGI. For fast CGI, if you're using the, I believe it doesn't hold up the request. I could be wrong, but you'll quickly find out. And like I said, I don't recommend this as like make all your web apps run like this. Obviously, it's not ideal, but if you're just trying to save a buck and you don't want to manage servers and you just want like a database and some other stuff available to you, shared hosting is good, but it's a hard ask because you're working against a bunch of limitations. And I think for like just showcasing off your portfolio and stuff, this is fine. You can have a bunch of Go projects run on here like that. And I thought it was just a really interesting topic to explore because I was really trying to get this done with Python, and I kind of just gave up because I don't know of any shared hosting service that gives you a version of Python that's actually recent. If there's anyone knows any version that provides that can work, I don't even want to say in CGI mode, like has like mod WS CGI, please let me know, because I've not found anything. And fast CGI with Python, specifically with Django and stuff like that, a lot of people just give up on it because it's so problematic running it with Python like that. And I'm assuming it's going to be the same issues with Go anyways, because like I said, asynchronous work could be prematurely terminated at the hour marker. But yeah, if you guys have any questions or comments, maybe some corrections, leave them down below. I'll be eagerly awaiting any type of feedback for this.